Hey, Knollwood family. All right, we're here. This is the first Ask Pastor Chris, episode 1, video 1, however that stuff gets said. I'm here. I've got the questions, and I'm sitting at my computer. It's Monday morning, and I'm going to attempt to do this in one take. Let's see how it goes. So I got questions, and I think the way I'm going to do this. Oh, sorry. So if you're watching this and you don't know what I'm talking about, hey, as a church, we are reading through the Bible in 2026, cover to cover, and so we're doing that. And if you want to join us, knoll.org/YOTB, Year of the Bible, right? You can jump in and you can read along with us. And then I'm doing these videos throughout 2026 as a way to just give people a forum to sort of ask questions about the text and what they're reading and get those things answered. And I'm going to do my best to answer questions. I can't promise. I'm not promising that I'm going to answer every question all the time. I got to, give myself some space with it, but I'm going to do my best. Today, I've got some questions, and I'm really going to just take them in the order that they came in. I might not always do that. I could always put them in the order of like the biblical order, like, chapter and verse, and put them in that order and take them that way. Sometimes if I get questions that are around the same thing, I might merge them into one super question and answer that. So, that'll be fun. But my point is, I'm going to do my best to come at this. I think I'm going to try to make these videos on Monday and post them on Wednesday. I think that it gives me a little more flexibility to actually make the video. I'm going to try to do it in one take, because sometimes we're going to do this live, maybe in the worship service, right? And so if we do that, that's going to be one take there anyway. So I figure, let me just take the questions and kind of try to shoot this video in one take. I may end up doing a little bit of editing on the back end if I start to get too wordy or this thing's like it's getting long. Even this introduction maybe is getting a little long. I don't know how far we are into this. 2 minutes into this, I haven't answered a question yet. So, but they won't all be like this. But I'm just giving a little bit of here's what this video is and videos that you see like it and that sort of thing. Okay, enough of that. Why don't we get into questions? Okay, I got my first question. It says, interesting. We grow up learning Noah loaded a pair, 2 of each animal onto the ark. Yet Genesis 6:19 initially instructs 2 of every kind, 1 pair, while Genesis 7:2-3 clarifies 7 pairs of clean animals and birds, plus 1 pair of unclean animals. What do we teach kids at KCC? So it's not a question about the text necessarily. It's, so what do we teach kids about this? In the Genesis account, right? I mean, we read, God brings the animals on, does the 2x2 thing, and then we learn later on, right, that there are more than just a pair, right, of the clean animals. There's like 7 of them. And so we learn that additional animals were brought on, and those were brought on for sacrificial purposes, clean animals. And we see that when he gets off, Noah does offer sacrifices to God. And so that's kind of the purpose of those, not necessarily to propagate the clean animals more than the unclean ones, but just so that he had those to do the sacrifices. And so I think that's great. What do we teach kids at Knollwood? We teach them the text. Now, I think this is good, right? Because I think this gives an opportunity to talk about the idea of teaching kids and what do you teach them as it relates to the Bible. And I think a good philosophy, not just for churches, but for parents, is the idea that you should teach the Bible truthfully, but you should teach the Bible in a way that accommodates to the capacity of the kids. In other words, like when my boys were younger and we would talk about the Bible, there were things in there I didn't talk about. Like, when we were reading through the Bible and we would do Genesis, listen, I didn't cover, I got to be careful how I say this because I think, if I say the wrong word, YouTube might do something to this video. So in chapter 13, there's a story, not 13, I think it's 16. But there's a story about a woman who is treated badly. I skipped that with my boys when they were 5 and 6, right? It's like, it's this idea of accommodating to their capacity. Here's another example that I think is probably better, right? How would you answer this question, right? A 5-year-old comes up and asks you, Daddy, where do babies come from? How do you answer that question? You answer it truthfully, right? But you accommodate the answer to the capacity of the one who's asking the question. In other words, the answer to the question, where do babies come from, is different. The answer you give a 5-year-old is different than the answer you give a first-year medical student, right? That's the point. Both answers are true, right? But as you grow up, mommy's tummy, right, is no longer becomes an acceptable answer. It's a true answer, but it's not the whole thing, right? So you teach in a way that accommodates to kids' capacity. Now, when we're going through the text with my boys, who at this point are teenagers, right? It's like, hey, we're going to talk about all of it, right? And so I think there's value. You want to be able to teach the text in a way that helps kids understand what's going on, right? So you teach the Noah story, and it's like, hey, yeah, God judged the earth because of sin. I think it's okay to talk about sin, little kids, because it's real and it matters, right? But he judged the earth, he flooded the earth, but he saved Noah's family, and he saved all the animals on the ark, and and then God rescued them, and the earth, the world continued, right? God kind of restarted with Noah. I think that's certainly a perfectly appropriate way to tell that story to kids. But as they grow up, you want to increase complexity. I think that's where we maybe get into trouble. We teach our kids the Bible in a way that's appropriate to kids, but sometimes we fail to circle back around and give them more of the grown-up version, so to speak. I don't know if version's the right word, but to help them process the text as they age up into it. And so people go into adults with this childish faith, this faith that worked as a child, but nobody ever came around and helped them mature their faith into a grown-up way. So as a church, we try to do that, right? Teach the Bible to kids in kids ministry in age-appropriate ways, and as they head up into youth ministry and young adults and ultimately into worship, try to bring them along and help them have a grown-up faith, a faith of their own. This is probably too long, right? If I keep going in this way, this video is going to be 4 hours. But thanks for hanging with me. Okay, so that's my answer to the first question. Second question, Genesis 1:3. God created light, but did not create the sun until Genesis 1:16. What was the light in verse 1 through 3? Okay, this is chapter 1, verse 3. This is another good question because it lets me riff and sort of answer the question I want. I mean, to answer the question, where was the light earlier? I mean, God himself could have been the light, right? It could have been that he was, doing this thing, and then he created the sun, moon, and stars, later on. Or it could be some other answer. But then this is the part I want to riff on. I think it's important when we're looking at these first chapters in Genesis, chapters 1 through 11, right? It's like that's where a lot of these sort of questions about things come up. I think it's important to remember that Genesis was written and given to a certain people at a certain time for a certain purpose. It's true, but the text, oftentimes to the frustration of modern readers, is making no attempt to answer some of the questions that we try to bring to the text as modern readers. And so I think we make the mistake when we don't take it for what it's attempting to give us, when we try to get it to answer questions that the text isn't trying to answer, right? And in a lot of ways, Genesis is not trying to answer detailed cosmological questions, right? It's trying to tell us the story that God is the creator of everything, right? And he created people to be in a relationship with him, but we broke the relationship, and now God is working in the world to rescue the world through the person of his son Jesus. I mean, so when we look at the text, that's the story it's trying to tell us. That's the questions that it's trying to answer, and it can be frustrating because it's like, oh, I wanted to answer other questions. Where'd that snake in the garden come from? Did God create that? Did he get there? The text makes no attempt to give us an answer to that question, right? Because that's not the purpose that we're going after here. All right, I'm back. My screen went black for a minute, and so I had to kind of edit a part out. So I'm back now, and I will make sure to try to touch the mouse occasionally to keep the screen active. So where was I at? So let's not attempt to get the text to answer questions that the text isn't attempting to answer. Now some might come back with that and say, well, hold on. If it can't answer all of these questions, then of the cosmological questions or geological questions that I want answered, can I trust it? Should I trust it? And the answer is absolutely. You should trust the book of Genesis, and you should accept it for true for a lot of reasons, but if for no other reason than the fact that Jesus, when he talked about the Old Testament, including Genesis, he talked about it as if it was true, as if it was God's word, as if it should be read and savored and obeyed and followed and all of that, right? Jesus talked about the Old Testament, the Hebrew Scriptures, as if it was God's word. And here's the deal. I'm following Jesus, so I want my view of the Scriptures to line up as closely as possible to Jesus' view of the Scriptures. And so I'm in, even if I don't have the answer to every question, and I don't, by the way, and I'm in, even if I still have questions about what I'm reading, and I do. But so, again, a little long, but hopefully that's helpful. Hey, this is Pastor Chris from the future. When I was going back to edit the video, I think that when my screen went black, it threw me off, and I forgot to say something about the Genesis 1:3 passage that I wanted to say. So I just wanted to insert this. I think it'll be helpful. One of the things I like about that passage is it talks about that God created the sun, moon, and stars, like speaking to the cultural context and to the world that Genesis was given to. I think that's an important statement, right? Because Genesis was written in a world and to a world that worshiped the celestial beings as deities. The sun, moon, and stars, by many cultures, were considered to be deities. And Genesis stands in contrast to that and says, no, there is one God, and he is Yahweh. And the sun, moon, and stars, those are not gods. Those were created by God for his purposes. And so I think in that creation account, right, it's just giving us that piece there, speaking to the world in which it was written, right? And so I think that's important for us to remember and helpful for us to know. Okay, that's what I wanted to add. So I'm just gonna insert this into the spot in the video, so it'll just cut back to where it was going. Okay. Another question, Genesis 4:17. Who was Cain's wife? His sister? I think probably. I think, it seems to be that Genesis seems to be making the point that all of humanity are descendants from this original couple, Adam and Eve, and I believe that. So yeah, I think it's and Adam and Eve had more children than just the ones that we get a record of in the text. So yeah, I think the simplest answer is Cain's wife was probably his sister, and so yeah. Okay, Genesis 9:25. Why did Noah curse Canaan? So this is happening after the flood. The ark gets on dry land, and they're finally able to exit the ark. And I find it hilarious, right, that it's like they exit the ark, and the first thing Noah does is like, oh, I want to drink, right? Noah plants a vineyard, and then the text says he planted a vineyard, and then he got drunk and kind of passed out naked in his tent. And one of his sons, Ham, went into the tent And the text says that, depending on the version you're reading, saw his nakedness, right? I mean, it doesn't give us a whole lot of description other than that. But at the minimum, something sketchy, something at a minimum disrespectful happened in that tent, because it's contrasted with the way Shem and Japheth react. They go in and they have like a blanket over there, and they go in backwards, and they don't look at their father's nakedness. They treat him respectfully and kind of cover that up and let him rest. And so something about the difference between the way Ham responded and the way that the two other brothers responded caused Noah it was serious enough that disrespectful enough that Noah cursed his son Ham, who the Canaanites are descended from. So that's the answer I got. Okay. Last question. Genesis chapter 6. Oh, here. Okay, Genesis chapter 6. You knew this was coming, right? It's this one's always a question, right? In Genesis chapter 6, who are the sons of God that were marrying the daughters of men? I read a commentary about this section and came away even more confused. Well, join the club, right? Genesis chapter 6 is this. It's got Nephilim in there, right? These men of renown. And so when we talk about Genesis chapter 6, right, it's the sons of man the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were beautiful, and they took any that they wanted as wives, and their descendants were the Nephilim, men of great renown, right? This kind of thing. And so it's this question of what is going on here, and who are the sons of God? Who are the daughters of men? What's going on here, right? And lots of people have attempted to answer that question in lots of ways. And here's the deal. A lot of this, again, we just have what the text says, right? We don't have other necessary explainers, right? So people who are like walking around saying, oh, I know 100% for sure what this is, I don't know that I buy them. But here's the general consensus is there's kind of, I was going to say 3, but really kind of 4. I kind of hold to the 4th view, right? And so there's several different views about who these could be and what this is, right? The first view, which honestly is popular and because it's exciting, is that these were the sons of God were fallen angels who came and saw that the daughters of men, human women, were beautiful, and so they married them, and the children of that marriage was these like sort of half human, half like demigod kind of things, to use that sort of language, right? Like these men of renown, and Goliath maybe is related to them, and that sort of thing, right? I don't know that I buy that view. There was a time where I think I held that view because sons of God is used other places as angels, and it sort of made the like the flood narrative a little more, oh yeah, you see, all of this was terrible things were going on, and so God flooded the earth and judged it, and and all of that, and made it feel like it had a little more gravitas to it. But I don't know that I hold really that view anymore, for a couple of reasons. Like contextually, I don't know that it really makes sense in what's going on here. He's talking about humans kind of the whole time, and also Jesus. In the Gospels, I think it's Matthew 22. Jesus makes a comment, right? He's answered a question from religious leaders about the Sadducees are giving him this off the wall question about a man who died, and his brother married the widow and had no kids, but he died, and like it's this 7 times whose wife will she be in the resurrection? And Jesus is like, hey, you're asking a bad question because you don't understand the scriptures. And then he talks about, hey, in the resurrection, people aren't given in marriage. We are going to be like the angels who aren't given, they're not marrying people, right? And so Jesus makes this comment that it's like marriage and all of that kind of stuff is not a part of the angelic world, right? And so I think there's big questions about whether an angel human marriage, if they even could conceive, right? It's like, I don't think that is, I don't think they're built right. You know what I mean? It's like, so I don't know that I buy that view, especially given that Jesus seems to talk about that's not really the way that it goes down. So another view is that the sons of God represented the godly line of Seth, right? Seth was the son born to Adam and Eve after Abel was killed, right? So they represent the children of Seth, the godly line, and then the daughters of the daughters of men represented the sinful line of Cain. I think that's right. Maybe I'm reversing it, but anyway, it's that sort of thing. Like the godly line is marrying with the ungodly line, and that's a problem, right? And it sort of leads to the flood, right? It's like no, we can't. We got to protect the line of the Messiah. That sort of thing. I don't know that I buy that view either. One, because the text makes there's no such thing as more godly humans than others. We're all broken because of sin, right? And so it's like there's no scenario where you marry someone who is more sinful and thus create more sin, differently sin. We're all as sinful as we can be. We're all broken, right? So that doesn't really make sense to me. A third view is that the sons of God represented maybe earthly kings or rulers, right, who were trying to build dynasties through polygamy, right? And I'm sure that was happening, right? But again, contextually, I don't know if that makes a lot of sense in the text. I think the view that I hold, and I'm willing to be convinced, and I hold it loosely in all of that, I think the view that I hold is the sons of God, right, was a euphemism for just humans, right? So this was a group of men who arrogantly, pridefully saw beautiful women and took any that they wanted as their wives. It's like, oh, you're gorgeous. You're with me now. Oh, you don't want to be with me? That makes no difference to me. I'm stronger than you, so I'm going to force you. I think it was that kind of thing. I think it was more about seeing the exploitation of women, which we've already seen in the text, right? I think about Lamech. And the first guy that we see, hey, I'm taking 2 wives. Everyone's got 1 wife, but not me. I'm a big deal. I'm going to start collecting women like trophies, like property, right? I think it's more of an exploitation thing. And I think that these men that were doing it were warriors, right? And they could do it because they were stronger and they, lived by the sword, that kind of thing. No one could stop them, right? And so the offspring, became great warriors, strong people that you told stories about. I mean, I have to apologize because I realize that is probably the least exciting answer for Genesis 6. But I think after looking at it, that's really where I come down on it. So I hope that's helpful. Okay, those are all the questions that I've got. I'm going to turn this video off and look at it, and depending on how long it is, I may go ahead and edit it down a little bit. So, but listen, you can send your questions to knoll.org/askpastorchris. Maybe I can put something, somewhere here to make that clear. And again, we're going to experiment with a bunch of ways to do this. This is like that first video, and so we'll mess around with this. We're going to try to do something live in the service. Maybe I'll do something in written form, but I don't want to commit to that because, I don't want to commit to things I don't know that I can pull off. So this, at least I can just turn on a camera and run my mouth, and that works okay. So I hope this is helpful. I'm praying for you. Don't give up on your Bible reading. If you get behind, just pick up today. Just read today and keep going. Because the goal is not to read the Bible in a year. The goal is to build the habit of regular Bible reading. All right, we'll see you Sunday.